Welcome to the Finding Heroes podcast and Vodcast. This is part of the Finding Heroes project. I'm Wayne Abbott, your host and producer. This episode is part of a series that we're working on called Etched in Stone, the Story of Vimy Ridge. On the previous episode, we introduced the story of Maison Blanche. To say it's a unique place is an understatement. Now, Maison Blanche is what you call a medieval cave or a souterrain. It was dug out by the locals probably in the 17th or 18th century to mine chalk for building supplies. There's hundreds of souterrains that are spread across that part of northeastern France around Vimy Ridge. These souterrains were left for a century or more until the First World War, when both the Allied Army and the German Army took advantage of these underground caves to billet soldiers. Basically, it was a smart way of housing your soldiers and keeping them safe from enemy shells. Now, Maison Blanche in particular was discovered by the Canadian Army in late 1916, early 1917, and then was used by the Canadian Army to billet house hundreds of Canadian soldiers leading up to the Battle of Vimy Ridge. And of course, the Battle of Vimy Ridge is considered one of Canada's great military triumphs during the First World War. A ferocious battle that was fought over 4 days between April 9th and 12th, 1917. And for the first time, all 4 Canadian divisions fought side by side during battle. The location of Maison Blanche, being only a few kilometers from the ridge, was an ideal place to use to billet soldiers leading up to battle. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, you should view the Vodcast on our YouTube channel to take a look at the images of Maison Blanche. You see me here. This is footage that I shot when I was there just in October. I'm standing in what looks like a fairly normal farmer's field, except for this strange hatch. And as I go down these old stone stairs, it leads to the actual cave, Maison Blanche, the White House, an appropriate name for a chalk cave. Now, what you see first is a cave, but as I walk, I reveal something along the walls. And these are amazing etchings and carvings done by Canadian soldiers all over the walls of Maison Blanche. It's estimated that there's about 700 etchings and names on the walls of Maison Blanche, all done by Canadian soldiers leading into the Battle of Vimy Ridge. I mean, in a way, it looks like an art gallery. It's so beautiful and it's powerful to be down there. Now, in this episode, we're just going to highlight one soldier who is billeted, housed in Maison Blanche for several weeks leading up to Vimy Ridge, and he etched his name into the wall of Maison Blanche. His name was Walter Stewart McNicol from Roblin, Manitoba. He was with the Canadian Scottish of the 16th Battalion. Sadly, Walter was killed in the first hours of the Battle of Vimy Ridge. As you saw in a previous Finding Heroes podcast, as well in the last episode of Etched in Stone, we tell the story of how we researched and found Walter's great-niece, Agnes Whitley, who lives in British Columbia. We virtually revealed to her the story of Maison Blanche and Walter's signature. It was a very emotional moment for Agnes. And here is his name and his service number etched on the wall of Maison Blanche.
Oh, just want to touch it. Yeah, just want to touch it. It's just so amazing.
Now that had to be done virtually, but I'm so pleased to say that I was in France with Agnes, her niece Cheryl, and her great-nephew Seth as they visited Maison Blanche for the first time. It was a wonderful experience. Here is a recent virtual interview I did with them on their experiences in France and their first visit to Maison Blanche. We have 2 special guests who I was able to spend some time with in France, not only at Vimy Ridge, but more specifically, visiting Maison Blanche. And I'm very proud to introduce you to 2 relatives of Walter Stewart McNicol, his great-niece, Agnes Whitley, and his great-great-niece, Cheryl Davie. Hello, how are you two?
I'm
Great.
wonderful. Yeah.
Well, it's
Great.
great.
Hi, Wayne.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. I mean, the last time we saw each other was in France.
It seems like 100 years ago.
Oh, it does, but it was such a special trip, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Mhm.
Where I'd want to start, because I know this is mentioned in the podcast in the previous episode of Etched in Stone, is that Walter Stewart McNicol, you didn't know he existed until a few years ago when you discovered that he was actually part of your family tree. So, Agnes, maybe just start with the story of how you discovered that Walter Stewart McNicol was your relative.
Well, during COVID, I wanted to do something for my brother Ken because of his birthday. And so I thought, well, the one thing to do is to I did a photo album and kind of a family history. But then the further I got into on ancestry, I noticed that grandma's family was quite large. And what happened was, and I talked to my brother Ken a lot about it. I said, Ken, why didn't we ask the questions about grandma's family? I started to investigate it, and then I found out Walter died during World War I, died at Vimy Ridge, but I don't know why nobody talked about it.
And so, Cheryl, when Agnes told you that there's this long lost relative who not only fought at Vimy Ridge, but, sadly died there. I mean, what were your first thoughts when you heard about Walter?
Well, my first thought was, I went all through school and university, attending Remembrance Day ceremonies and honoring the veterans, but I didn't think I had any relatives who actually fought for Canada. So it was just really touching for me. It made things more personalized, and it made things more meaningful for me. So I just couldn't believe, and it made me think how many other families might be out there with relatives who died, but people didn't talk about it. That's how they dealt with their grief at that time, and I think had a need to honor him.
Yeah, well, and then we come along a few years later,
Mhm.
and here, you've just discovered Walter Stewart McNicol. And then we tell you that he etched his name into a wall of a strange, unique cave in France, not far from Vimy Ridge. What was the reaction in the family when that was discovered, or we told you about the signature?
It was just shocking. It was just like, how could something that was over 100 years ago still be there? Like, he left his mark, and it was just shocking. And it was, in a way, sad too, because, like, I think Julia said, like, it's like they were crying out to be remembered, but it just felt very touching and very. It just made the spark inside wanting to honor him even more.
Yeah.
When we found that out.
Now, Julia, who you mentioned, is Julia Richardson from the Duran Group, who was part of the original podcast when we did the research and discovered, or we did the research into Walter's name and then discovered Agnes and then you. Agnes, when you first heard about Maison Blanche and a souterrain and a cave where Canadians were billeted weeks before, including your great uncle. What did you think about that story?
Well, when we look at World War I and all the soldiers that were there, all you ever saw were the tents and the mud and the guns. Do you know what I mean? I would have never imagined that they were housed below ground. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So, Cheryl, when you first saw the images, like go back now after the podcast and you saw the images of this cave, what was your reaction?
Um, similar. Like I'd never seen anything like it where soldiers were housed. It just looked kind of majestic, and I never thought of a cave as a place where soldiers stayed. So
Yeah.
it just piqued my curiosity to find out more.
And then we had the opportunity to go over, which you guys really initiated, and then everybody else followed, because it was, I know during the podcast, David Hedges, part of the Durang Group, and Julia Richardson both said that, if any time you're over in France, they would come over and give you a tour. Because it's important to note for people that are listening or watching the podcast is that Maison Blanche is on private land. So you can't go over there and buy a ticket like Vimy and just go and see the battlefield. You have to get special permission from the farmer. So that it wasn't complicated at all. It's just a matter of coordinating it, because this is on private land. So, I mean, what was your anticipation before I show you? I have a video of when you first arrived at Maison Blanche that I want to play. But as you were traveling over, I mean, what was the anticipation of, and what were maybe your expectations, if you can recall that, going over to Maison Blanche?
Well, I felt, and I was very fortunate that Cheryl's son Seth was with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I don't think we talked that much. We just kind of, oh, this is going to be it. We're going to be so fortunate. And then when we got there and met the Durang Group and everybody, they just made us feel so much at home. And my mobility isn't that great, but even getting down there was quite easy.
But what
So,
about you, Cheryl? What was
Yeah.
before we get into the details of being in the cave, but
Yeah.
what was your anticipation, like your expectation possibly? I mean, were you even nervous going down into the cave?
I think we were afraid of being cold down there, but we weren't. Yeah, it wasn't cold at all, by the way, or wet. We were afraid of being wet, but I think it was no question. It just thought this is a special thing to do, and it was just very special to have 3 generations of my family go there, and it was just like, no, we need to do this for Walter. We need to. He wrote his name. He made the graffiti. The least we could do was go there and honor him and say, yes, yeah, you cried out to be remembered, and we remembered you. So it was no question. We have to go there, and luckily I have an adventurous aunt who was open to it.
Well, it was great. Well, what I'm going to do is special here, especially if you're listening to on the podcast. You might have to go to the Vodcast to actually see the images here, but this is just a couple of minutes of when you first arrived at Maison Blanche, because one of the most unique things about Maison Blanche is getting down into the cave.
Hello, welcome to Maison Blanche Cave. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
And you. Oh, he's a big laddie. Hello. Hello. Well, have a hat, and you're going to go and see where your relative was in the First World War.
Our uncle.
Thank you. Your uncle. Right, well, do come in. Just go sideways on the steps with your, and just hold me, my age. Or you can hold the orange rope. There you go.
When we all arrived at Maison Blanche, and you saw this hatch going down into the cave, and David is saying, "Here, follow me." What were your thoughts, What were your thoughts, Agnes, when you started walking down those old stone steps?
well, it's the first time that I've ever been in a cave, number one, but I was so glad Cheryl was in front of me and Seth was behind me, because the steps are uneven, and then at the very bottom you have a massive big step. But I thought, you know what? This is going to be probably one of the highlights of my life, because I'm going to see part of my grandma's family that she didn't talk about, that none of the sisters and the brothers talked about. And I thought, this is going to be a really big deal to me, and it was.
And what about you, Cheryl? What were your thoughts as you walked down those old stone stairs?
It was just very powerful feeling of thinking those are the same stairs like hundreds of soldiers walked down, and even the cave even dated pre those times, and just think we're walking down those same stairs like
Yeah.
Okay, you can stand up
110
now.
years later. It was just very powerful, and I was just I had been in caves before on Vancouver Island and everything, but this was
That's it.
and in
Stand up.
Thailand I've never been in a cave like that before. Not a cave that you could stand upright, and it was so majestic. So it was a privilege for sure.
Now, we see this footage here where David's taking you into the cave, and the first thing he started to show you, I think it's called Ambler Hall.
So this we call Ambler Hall after the soldier that carved the most advanced carvings here.
Which were these elaborate, beautiful carvings done by the soldier whose last name was Ambler. I mean, your eyes all seemed to kind of just open wide. What were your thoughts when you actually came across these carvings? But these carvings were incredible.
Those carvings are incredible. In fact, some of those soldiers were just such great artisans. You wondered what they did after the war. Did they continue their artwork? You just thought, oh my goodness, I remember the maple leaf, the person that did the maple leaf. And I thought, that's such a beautiful symbol of Canada.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites. I love that maple leaf with a 4 in it, I think. And it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it is stunning.
So, and then when you saw name after name and carving after carving as you walked through the cave, Cheryl, what were your thoughts?
Just overwhelmed, and just I just tried to put myself in the soldiers' shoes, and they seemed to be very proud of what they were doing. Drawings of home, like I especially resonated to the fellow who drew about his farm animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because my family are farmers, so I thought, they're thinking of home, and it was very touching to see that, and just unbelievable that here we are 110 years later, and we get to see these. They were so well preserved. It was amazing.
And what was Maison Blanche like? Was it what you expected? Just the size of it and the layout?
Oh, the size is unbelievable. Like, I thought they said it was a chalk cave, but I did not realize how many corridors and rooms there were. It was actually kind of like entering a cathedral, and all our ancestors were there wanting us to say, you remembered us.
We kind of built up the emotion as you walk through the cave, and then you go into Trench Alley. And Trench Alley is where you see for the first time, Walter's signature.
I see it. W.S. McNicol.
Right there. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I'm running this video now because it really shows just how emotional you all were. I mean, Cheryl, you can see yourself in this video here. You just immediately tear up. So take me through now. You're seeing Walter's signature for the first time. What do you recall?
Yeah, I'm tearing up just thinking about it.
I know.
I just think finally, Walter, like, you wrote your name, in 1917, and we finally found you. Like, we're finally, remembering you, and just hoping that he's looking down at us and thinking how happy he would be.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and then, yeah,
And
Scottish Highlanders, 16th Battalion, March 29th, 19. But in a way, it makes me happy that he was with a friend, because he just joined this battalion.
Yeah, and the idea that we're in the same place, exact same place where he stood or was when he wrote that, it was really powerful.
That must be really the most powerful element of it, is that you're sharing the same ground, 108, 109 years later.
Yes.
I mean, Agnes, how did that feel, that you knew that you were standing exactly where Walter stood all those years ago?
Well, actually, what I remembered was my grandma. And I thought, Grandma, I wish that you were here to see where your brother was, and see that he carved his name into a chalk mine in France just before he was killed in the war. I think that was a powerful moment for me, thinking of my grandma.
You got chills running down my spine right now, and just emotionally touch me on that, because you both went up to the wall with Seth, and I just remember we're filming you and how, it wasn't just the tears, but the emotions. And then you reached out and you said something in the podcast. I don't know if you remember, Agnes. You said, when I showed you the photo of it first, you said, I wish I could touch it.
Yes.
And then you had the opportunity to reach out and touch the signature. Tell me how that felt.
It was powerful because I didn't know any of my grandma's brothers or sisters. And here I had the opportunity to see something that was part of him.
Cheryl, get your hand in. Oh my goodness. I'm just so sad that he died so young.
And I'm tearing up. Every time I think about it, I tear up. But yeah, I thought about my grandma and how proud she would be for me to be there and be allowed to touch part of him.
Yes. Wow. And Cheryl, what are your thoughts now when you went up and were able to touch it? And also, you had your son next to you. What was that like?
Yeah, similar to Agnes, and just what I thought when they, the soldiers that died and that were buried in France, the family didn't. Back in Canada, the families back in Canada didn't get to see their grave or bury them or have the normal ceremonies that we would normally do. So it was kind of like completing a circle for me that, that was to honor my heritage. And it was especially because I have Seth, who had just turned 18, my son, and he wasn't that much younger than Walter was. So it just, as a mom, it just really touches you, like, you just kind of can't imagine what it would be like for all those mothers that lost their sons.
Now I'm really tearing up because I think of my grandma, and her other brother went to war, came back, but he was never the same. And then about 4 years after he came home, they moved to California, and he died in California. Again, my grandmother didn't have the opportunity to be with him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good point. So even the ones who didn't die there, they weren't the same when they came home, and there's all kinds of different health problems that they faced coming home. So
Why do you think, and I don't know if I've ever asked you this question, or maybe I did in the podcast, but I'll ask it again because it is poignant that you're standing and we're seeing the three of you in front of his signature. Why do you think he was lost in your family history?
well, My cousin, I always say those Wallen girls wouldn't tell you anything. And that was my grandma, my aunts. Nobody talked about the family. And part of the reason I think my grandmother had a child out of wedlock, and I think they cut her off. She didn't cut them off.
Well, it is sad, though, that so many generations or other relatives didn't know about Walter.
Yes.
But the amazing thing is you rediscovered him, and then you got to go all the way to Maison Blanche. And the last part of the story, or really the second last one, is the fact that when you see Walter's signature, it's etched in the wall with another name.
Yes.
Another soldier named Leo Kenny.
Yes.
And this was maybe such a fascinating part of this entire story that we do tell on the podcast. So if you've seen the original Finding Heroes podcast on Maison Blanche, you would know the story. If this is the first time you've heard about Walter Stewart, well, the story goes like this, is that he was with three other soldiers, the four of them, the night of April 8th. One was named Alvin Kynes, Daniel Holmes, and Leo Kenny. Now, Leo Kenny's name is etched in the wall above Walter. And then you got the opportunity to see just, I don't know, was it 10 or 15 feet over to the side on the wall was the names of Daniel Holmes and Alvin Kynes, because you got to see their signatures as well, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
And what's so amazing about this story and special is that Alvin Kynes, Daniel Holmes, Leo Kenny, and Walter all marched the night of April 8th to Vimy. And the story goes through Alvin Kynes, who he told Julia Richardson, and Julia passed it on to us, is that Leo Kenny read a poem called Cobbled Road, which was about a group of soldiers, friends, who went off earlier in World War I to battle, and sadly, only one of them came back after the battle. And it's a haunting kind of poem, and this is exactly what unfolded with these four friends. On the morning of April 9th, Walter, Alvin, Daniel, and Leo go into battle together. And within the first hour or so, Walter is sadly killed. Daniel and Leo are both wounded. Alvin is the only one left standing. And Julia relayed this beautifully in the podcast. I didn't relay it as well, but it's such a chilling story that you're not only seeing his signature, but you're seeing three others who were with him when he died on April 9th, 1917. And what was that like? That just this added element of his story about this poem and these three other soldiers.
Well, I have it posted on my bedroom wall, and with the drawings or the graffiti, like everybody wants to call it. I have the two graffitis and that poem, and I get up and I walk by it and I touch Walter's name every day.
Oh man, that touches me deeply. The fact that you have that, Agnes, on your wall. What about you, Cheryl, to know that like Walter is connected with these three in life, and they etched their names on March 29th. It was only like 10 days later when Walter was killed after he etched his name in the wall. So what's it like to know that there's this connection?
Well, I just found it very comforting, and I think I mentioned it because Walter didn't go to, he wasn't originally in the 16th Battalion. He had moved, I think, in November to the 16th Battalion. So I found kind of comfort that he was with friends, and I just thought it was kind of neat that they were reading poetry together, and it just kind of gave me comfort that, it's very sad that he was killed in action, but it gave me comfort that he was with friends just hours before.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that he didn't die alone, and that's comforting to me.
Yes. Yeah, he died with friends. And you have, like, one of the bits of the story is that I guess it's fortunate that his body was found, because
Yes.
so many of the soldiers from the First World War, even at Vimy Ridge, especially dying on the 9th, a lot of times their bodies were never discovered. So you've had the pleasure and the honor of actually going to his gravesite.
I went and we were able to walk to and find his grave. And what really touched me is that the caretakers of that cemetery were there working. And as soon as they saw us, they left the graveyard so we could have our private moment.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty special, that they would give up their time for me to honor my uncle.
It must have been incredibly powerful the first time you arrived at his gravesite, because that you would have been, after all these years, I'm going to tear up now, is that you would have been the first family member to visit him after 100 years.
Yes.
Wow.
That was just so special. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm showing images in the Vodcast right now, because you went to the site earlier than when I got there, and I went and visited Walter myself.
Yeah.
I went to, it's called Nine Elms.
Nine Elms, right.
And it's just beautiful how it's encircled by these nine elm trees. And so I shot this footage, and I got to say hello to Walter myself on my own. And it was a beautiful moment, you know. It's just to think, I mean, I have to wipe tears away. No, because I keep going back to this whole story is tied together by, it's like a chain. And if one of those chains didn't link up, we wouldn't be here talking about it, because Maison Blanche was really forgotten about for decades.
Right.
That's one of the stories that we really haven't said, is that, you know, after the Canadian soldiers were there, no other soldiers went back in. That's why it's very unique for Canada, because we're only Canadian soldiers billeted there. Then the farmer just used it over the decades as a place to dump garbage.
Yeah.
And then the Duran group had to find it, and I think it was 2002 or 2004. And they had to dig out the garbage in order to get into Maison Blanche. And then the Kennedyne group came along, and they scanned and did all of this work in preserving all the signatures digitally. Then the research was done. And then little old me came along with a podcast. They gave me about 20 names. And I was just fortunate enough to, I think I connected with your a relative, a cousin of yours, Agnes, first.
My cousin's daughter.
Your cousin's daughter. What was her name? Erica?
Erica Wallen.
Erica. So Erica, call it to Erica, because Erica messaged me when I contacted her, because I was working on the family tree. Yeah. And then, you know, we're able to connect and then get you over there. Like it's just, there's so many families there's so many names down there that families will not have the same opportunity as the both of you, and just unbelievable. And then on top of it, you didn't even know who Walter was until a few years ago.
Right.
It is kind of incredible and surreal in a way that all these connections were made to give you the opportunity to go down and see Walter's signature.
Yes. And you know, if it didn't line up right, we would have missed each other.
Yeah, very much so. And there's so many times when I'm researching, I get to a point, like we haven't found a relative of Daniel Holmes nor Leo Kenny, and I've looked, and you get to a point where you get to this family tree, or you get what you think are relatives, and you can't connect with them. You can't call them. So it is remarkable that we were able to connect and you had this opportunity. But there is one last story, because we held off in the podcast. We had too much story and we didn't tell you. And I'm showing this footage now. If you're on the podcast, go to the Vodcast on our YouTube channel, because we surprise you with a secondary story. And I'm just going to run this video right now. We never told you a year ago during the podcast. So David, can you just come right in here?
Yeah, sure.
David's going to show you something that we didn't make you aware of a year ago. So here's another real special surprise for you.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
He signed his name twice.
No. Oh my gosh. I didn't know this. Wow.
Oh, Walter.
It's really special that we found it twice. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's it. I mean, we surprised you with the second signature of Walter McNicol. He signed the wall twice. How did that make you feel?
Well, you know, Seth was the guy that said, I wondered if he did it twice. And,
Was that what Seth said leading into it before you went
Yeah.
down into?
Yes. I wondered if he did it twice, you know, after we got down. And it was so cool when it happened. And Seth was just so happy.
The fact that he signed it twice, there was only, I think the Duran Group and Canadime have said that there's only a couple of other guys that they figured out that have signed the wall twice. So it is
Really?
unique that Walter did it twice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, look, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about this. It was just such a pleasure to be in Maison Blanche. More special that we can keep the story of Walter Stewart McNicol alive, and the fact that he was forgotten about for so many years. Somebody like Walter should have been considered a hero in the family, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Well, he's a hero. That's why our series is called Finding Heroes, and I think we found an incredible hero in Walter Stewart McNicol. Is there anything you want to say about your experience for Walter himself before the podcast ends?
I'm just very pleased to have met him.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful for you, Wayne, and Finding Heroes, and all the people that were involved in bringing all this together, the Duran Group and the Canadime Group, and I'm just so grateful. It's an incredible gift for our family, and we'll make sure this legacy lives on, and for any families, I just can't describe what a gift it has been. So thank you.
It was a gift. It was just such a personal gift that you gave to us.
Well, there's a lot of people behind it, not just me. And as you said, you shouted out the Duran Group and Canadime, and having the opportunity to do the podcast. And, you know, that's the whole idea, is to try to find stories like Walter's to tell. And there's just, unfortunately, too many of them. But I think we have to do our due diligence in keeping their legacy alive. And, you know, when this, you know, so everybody who's listening on April 9th, just have a few thoughts for Walter and all the young soldiers who fought and died fighting for Canada at Vimy Ridge.
Yes.
So thank you, Cheryl and Agnes. It's a pleasure. Yes, it is special that we've been able to find a true hero in Walter. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On this, the 109th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, let's remember Walter McNicol and the 3,600 men killed at Vimy Ridge, but also the over 11,000 names of the missing Canadian soldiers from the Great War, whose names are etched on the Vimy Ridge Memorial, and the over 66,000 Canadian soldiers killed during the First World War, fighting for Canada and for our freedom. Let's never forget their sacrifice. Etched in Stone, A Vimy Ridge Story, Part 2, was produced by Northern Sky Entertainment. We'd like to thank Agnes Whitley, Cheryl and Seth Davie, David Hedges and Julia Richardson. You can contact us at findingheroesinfo@gmail.com. This has been the Finding Heroes podcast and vodcast, part of the Finding Heroes project.